Yes, State of the Nation address. Is it likely that President Zuma's fate will be decided during the upcoming National Executive Committee meeting? Why is Cyril Ramaphosa prioritizing an immediate investigation and prosecution of all those implicated in the state capture? And can land be expropriated without negatively impacting the economy and food security? What time is it? It's question time. Khotong, Raro, Grula, and welcome to the show. My name is Mpotse. The year 2018 is of particular significance to the ANC. The party is celebrating its 106 years of existence. The ANC has also declared it the year of Nelson Mandela and Albertina Sisulu to celebrate what would have been both Madiba's and Sisulu's 100th birthday. President of the ANC, Cyril Ramaphosa, used his January 8 statement to reflect on key issues. This included land expropriation without compensation, radical socio-economic transformation, and, of course, state capture, amongst others. He also emphasized unity within the ANC, warning members that they will be summoned to Luthuli House to explain why they are sowing divisions. Amid the booing of President Jacob Zuma and his late arrival at that particular event, the ANC President says, whatever happens to Zuma, he will never be humiliated. Analysts say the ANC needs to find a solution to the current situation where it has a leader of the party and another in government. So we are live. Therefore, you can call us, and there you've used the numbers to dial 089-110-4210. Our international number +27891104210. Tweet us at Question Time 24, and you can also stream us. Live stream. Yeah, the Facebook page SABC News Online and the YouTube channel, YouTube.com/SABC Digital News. So my guest today, the Leonard crew. Professor Susan Boysen, she's a vet from Wits School of Governance, and from our Hatfield Studios, Dr. Somadoda Fikeni is also a political analyst. But before we get into the discussion, let's have a look at what ANC President Cyril Ramaphosa had to say about the potential recall of President Zuma.
We should never, ever humiliate President Zuma. That is the one thing that we are very clear on. He should not be humiliated. He is a deployee of the African National Congress, nor should any leader of the ANC be humiliated for that matter. The other issue that is also important is that the leadership of the African National Congress will deal with all matters and deal with them in the interests of the people of South Africa.
President of the ANC there, Cyril Ramaphosa, just immediately after the January 8 statement. So, Professor, welcome. Datfigen, Molo.
Moloeni.
Away. Perhaps give me your impressions, Datfigen, of the. We know it is always referred to as a collective statement, it's the entire NEC that drafted it and all that. But, well, it's Cyril Ramaphosa who delivered it. So it's his statement.
Certainly, it does give a signal of his preference, the style of leadership, as well as the areas which will be prioritized. And it is also consistent with his campaign promises, as well as the decisions of the Nasrec conference. So we now have an idea as to how he's going to approach a whole range of issues, from fighting corruption, the socio-economic transformation and economic growth, as well as, the policies which include the issue of monopoly businesses, with the increase of the powers and the functions of the Competitions Commission. And he's quite clear on the issue of the state capture. And you remember that President Zuma had said such a thing as state capture doesn't exist. And Cyril Ramaphosa comes out very clearly to say it does not only exist, but it has to be tackled in the Commission of Inquiry. And again, President Zuma had said this commission should go back into many years, something that was supported by Mkhwebane. Again, the president of the ANC, Cyril Ramaphosa, says this should not be contaminated. It should stick to those areas. So we do have a good sense of what is going to happen. And another thing is the culture of starting things on time. I think that in itself is symbolically very important, because it's going to send a signal not only to ANC leaders but also to the government business.
Well, Poison, there's a call from different alliance partners. Recall Zuma, recall Zuma, recall Zuma. Who do you think is going to deliver the State of the Nation address?
You know, there are two certainties here. The one is that President Jacob Zuma's powers are decreasing by the day. We see Cyril Ramaphosa in many instances, Cyril, together with the rest of the top 6, top 5, moving in, like today, they reportedly were having negotiations or talks with the Treasury to find out about funding of higher education, free higher education. That is such a significant symbol of the changing power. And in second place, we see increasing this net closing around President Jacob Zuma. His credibility has faded, virtually collapsed, and it would do incredible damage to the benefits that the ANC has gained in recent weeks since Cyril Ramaphosa's election as ANC President. They've gained credibility, much legitimacy even, in the eyes of the voter, the voters, the electorate out there. They would be crushing that. They would totally negate those gains, important gains of recent weeks, if Jacob Zuma delivers that address. And besides, he has also in recent weeks shown himself to be pretty much of a loose cannon president. For example, on higher fees, free higher education, the fees issue there, the ANC subsequently had to move back and recover ground and put that policy into perspective. I do not think the ANC can afford to let him deliver that. And given all the circumstantial evidence and the fact that the ANC is really a very strategic, calculated organization, I think there will be a plan to get a succession, to have this increasingly confirmed one center of power, and that is in the ANC, with President Jacob Zuma in the national or state presidency as a hanger-on at this stage, but with some power left to may put him in a position where he cannot do any further damage.
Lungile, you are in Cape Town. Welcome. Lungile? Okay, we seem to have lost Lungile there. But yeah, please do give us a call, 089-110-4210. Let's hear your thoughts on this matter. Who do you think should or will deliver the State of the Nation later this year? Dr. Figeni, some people have criticized Dr. Ramaphosa for emphasizing on this unity, and I don't know whether they had expected him to really come hard against those people who had not supported him leading to conference. What do you read into excuse me, what do you read into this line of march which he has adopted, this path of unity emphasis?
Well, I do think that all factions within the ANC had agreed that unity of the ANC was very important. And they highlighted that they learned a lot from negative experiences of Polokwane, which led into a split, creation of COPE and thereafter. But most important are the nuances in the emphasis of unity. Others were talking of unity which brings all sides together. But with Ramaphosa, he was trying to qualify that by saying unity but also you have principles such as fighting corruption and taking on the people who have been involved in state capture. That in itself is a balancing act, which is saying we are prepared to defend the unity of the ANC, but not at all cost where principles are actually subtracted from the equation. And that in itself is a very pragmatic, practical position which any other political party would take. You just saw with the DA when Helen Zill's situation was coming, again, they feared the rupture and they retained her even when there was an outcry. And I'm sure with President Zuma as the president of the country, they'll try to deal with the issue of transition. They'll try to persuade him so that it looks voluntary. At the same time, they'll confine his authority and his room of maneuvering. And I'm of the view that we should not just believe that all of a sudden in a few weeks you'll have a change of guard and you'll have a new president delivering the State of the Nation address. It's equally possible. It's a 50-50% to say he might be persuaded to leave somewhere during the course of the year, especially when court cases begin and embarrassing revelations come. And on the eve of any impeachment possibility, that's when his exit might actually become imperative. Okay. But for now, we shouldn't hold our breath in the event he delivers the State of the Nation address, in the event he is around for the next few months, but he's unlikely to go to 2019 though.
Joseph, you're in Polokwane, welcome. Joseph? Oh, okay, Joseph is not there. Well, 0891104210 is the number to dial there. Professor President, the NEC Lekgotla begins on Thursday.
Yeah.
What do you think is going to happen? Do you think this recall thing is going to happen? I mean, there are people who are vociferous in that NEC, who have been making it, they've made sure that they don't hide their disdain, to JZ, and they would want to see his back as soon as possible. They are going to be meeting for a couple of days.
It's going to be such an important indication what happens in that NEC.
Yeah.
On the one hand, yes, every compelling reason why the ANC should move on, why the NEC should agree to be moving on. On the other hand, they want to minimize that damage and because they cannot suffer another potential split. But the NEC, we know there was such an equal division coming out of the elective conference elections. I have heard that some people are switching. We have seen, it's only a few low-key people in the last week or so that have openly been coming out in favor of President Jacob Zuma. And of course, people on their high-level politicians, they look at what is good for them in a longer run. If the ANC wins the election, and the ANC's chances to win the next election have improved given Cyril Ramaphosa's election. And if the ANC wins, Cyril Ramaphosa is going to be the person who appoints the next cabinet, who is highly influential in a range of other high-level appointments. And people, even those who have not been explicitly in favor or some even explicitly against Cyril Ramaphosa, it is time for them to start showing new political colors, and they know that. And so, but the point is, while there's every reason for them to start realigning, even reasons to do it very fast, some may choose be more calculated and hold off a bit longer, but there is, as you say, huge pressure for change. And what comes out of this NEC, and they are deliberating the State of the Nation address, who delivers it is probably just about as important, if not more important, in terms of credibility than what goes into it.
That Vigani, politicians change allegiances, and allegiance follows power. What do you foresee in this instance, in this coming NEC Lekgotla?
Well, I do think that they will discuss the principle and the issue of the two centers of power and how ANC should become an assertive center of control. And also, I do think that they may also make an input into what should go to the State of the Nation address, whoever will be delivering it, including President Zuma, if he is there. And they are still trying to get to know each other. And during that process, the chemistry of transition into loyalty, to the new president becomes very, very important. And it is during that particular period that we may read early signals. And indeed, people who stood behind Thabo Mbeki in Polokwane, it didn't take long before they threw their lot with President Jacob Zuma. That includes Nkosazana Dlamini Zuma. So it's not permanent, positions that politicians are actually entrenched in. In politics, there is a say that there are no permanent enemies, there are no permanent friends. There are permanent interests. And that adage, I think, will prove to be true in this particular case.
One of the things that the president of the ANC spoke about was land redistribution or expropriation without compensation. But then this emphasis that says it must not be at the detriment of or to compromise food production. We have seen what has happened with land that has been expropriated. I can give you an example of Zibediela, the citrus farm, which is now, a shadow of what it used to be in the past. Now, and there are many other agricultural projects like that. So I do not know whether this is a tactical way of saying we are actually not going to expropriate land.
We could immediately see at Nazareth the conditionalities, yes, not affect food security and not impact the economy generally badly. We've also seen not impact the agricultural sector badly. With conditionalities like that, we can take it just about for granted that there is not going to be wholesale, drastic, immediately radical land redistribution and not much expropriation without compensation. In the speech on Saturday, Ramaphosa put much more emphasis on agricultural production and agricultural initiatives, and putting emphasis also on urban land held by municipalities and other government institutions, for example. So he seemed to be putting a range of other options that are available on the table and putting them alongside land, the more radical version of land transformation, signaling in all likelihood to the investor community and all other sensitive international parties and national business parties that don't worry too much. But he knows that the pressure is on him. He cannot not do drastic transformation there. So I would be looking more towards what he has been saying about agricultural production and getting almost a type of agricultural revolution, food production and much more productivity there, getting new initiatives. ANC's government has been sitting on so many projects and programs in land transformation, and there's not been sufficient accountability as to what has worked and what not. So it seems that he is exploring parallel opportunities to get much more radical into land transformation than just the redistribution and without compensation.
Dr. Fiken, of all these resolutions that were taken at a conference, at the 54th conference, and perhaps the pronouncements that were made by Dr. Ramaphosa on Saturday, what do you think, given the reality of 2019 and the need for popular votes to be secured, what do you think are going to be the quick wins for the ANC?
Well, one of the quick wins for the ANC would simply be to release the statistics and any inventory of land that is under the state, and those farms which are not being used with absentee landlords, and start giving title deeds to people. Some of those have lived in those plots for decades and decades in the townships and in some farms and so forth. So if they can begin to shake that one. And the second one, just appoint the properly qualified boards and executives for the state-owned companies, because taxpayer is now reeling under pressure whenever these SOCs make mistakes. The taxpayer has to help bail them out with these billions and billions. And the free education, how it is rolled out, if it is well managed and it is worked towards sustainability, all those could be some of the quick wins. Of course, the issue of fighting graft, corruption, and patronage, cracking the whip, and also holding anyone who is being factional accountable, all those will come a long way to bring positive signals. Consultation with labor, with business, and aggressive invitation of investors, all those taken together could become quick wins at the time when the opposition is also on their back foot. The main opposition party still has many challenges like the ones in Cape Town. That is the best space for the ANC to begin to act.
From your side, what do you think would be quick wins for the ANC?
The ANC has already taken the major quick win, and that was Cyril Ramaphosa instead of Jacob Zuma, or instead of a proxy for Jacob Zuma. And the second big win is seen to be taking effective, quick, immediate action on corruption. And probably the third related one, seeing President Zuma going out as soon as possible for the ANC, because if he sees through his term until the election 2019, the ANC cannot possibly do an effective election campaign with him in place there as a figurehead of the party. So the ANC has already taken the major gains there. But yes, deepening transformation, bringing that in there, and job creation. Cyril Ramaphosa even included jobs as one of the bottom line at his closing statement on Saturday, in that whole line of inequity, poverty, unemployment, jobs right in there. And so they have to deliver on that, and stabilizing the economy, taking it out of the doldrums in terms of popular trust, investor trust in the economy. Okay. Already there.
Well, finally, that again, the booing of Tatu Zuma in the presence of course, Kenyan president there. And you are mentioned in the same sentence, but when the other president receives cheers whilst he was booed. What did you make of that?
Well, I do think that it still expresses the sentiments within the main section of the ANC, which would like to see a change of leadership, which may have been staggering under the pressure of having to defend its president, limping from one challenge into another, limping from one scandal into another. And during that period, ANC has suffered losses progressively since 2009, up until recently in the local government elections. So I do think that it is just the expression of sentiment for change and sentiment for tangible changes in face of many other challenges, including the state capture.
Well, we have had time for today, and thank you very much.
Thank you.
That was Question Time. A big thank you to my guests and you for watching the show. From me and the entire crew, have yourself a wonderful time. I have a hot.